So this is our fourth TFC podcast. This is TFC 2021. All attendees, all members of TFC have access to all 20 presentations, all 20 podcasts for 4 months. So this is a long-term study in really what I think is cross-pollination. Too many times, football coaches hang out with football coaches and track coaches with track coaches. And this is cross-pollination for me because even though I have worked in weight rooms and I know weight room people, this is not in my wheelhouse. So I am, I'm going to learn some things. I already have, of course, after listening to your presentation. But the main reason, I have to say this before I even get you to talk. The two reasons that I really wanted to invite you to TFC was, first of all, Joe Smith, after a podcast he did with you, texted me and says, you got to get to know this Dan John. And I said, why? Why do I get to, he said, well, he just sounds a lot like you. He says things that make sense and he gets right to the point and he doesn't care what other people think. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And then a month ago, I read the first book of yours. I read your latest book, Attempts.
Oh, yeah.
And I highlighted, I read on Kindle, and I must have highlighted 100 passages. I might have highlighted more than I actually, didn't highlight. So I'm a huge fan now, but still I'm out of my wheelhouse. So with an introduction, I like to ask people about their athletic career. I know it's a long time ago for you.
No,
but tell me about your athletic career.
Well, in 8 weeks, I'm going down to Phoenix for a weightlifting meet. I'm going to break the American records in my weight class in the snatch and clean and jerk and total. So I have started competing. My first trophies from 1967, and I was, high school. I did, football, wrestling, track, and then in the summers, soccer and basketball. Though I was a keeper in soccer, and I liked that, but it just, wasn't going to work out. I was a discus thrower. I wasn't big enough coming out of high school to go straight to Division I, though years later, Coach Mon, my coach at Utah State, he goes, with my grades and my throws, he would have given me a full ride. And I was like, wow. So as a senior, I weighed 162 and threw 170 in the discus with the high school plate. And then I met Dick Nottmeyer, started Olympic lifting, and I put on 40 pounds in 4 months. Basically all my quads, my spinal erectors, and my traps. Tony, my traps were so huge. I mean, there's pictures, just kind of funny. I was at a party one time, and a girl I went to school with from first grade to sophomores in college, she just starts pressing into my right here. And I'm not going to swear, but she goes, what the F is that? And I said, it's traps, it's muscle. And she just kind of looked at it like, what in the hell? So basically I was a real looker, massive traps, massive thighs. And Dick turned me into a Division I athlete. My team, Skyline College, my JC, we won the state championships. I was the team captain, MVP, and state champ in the disc. And then Coach Mon called me up, which is funny because that was my goal, was to go to Utah State. And he offered me a full ride. And then at Utah State, I threw 190. I threw with the real discus. I threw farther later. And then I got a master's after that in history. I later got another master's in religious education. I'm sorry. So I was always very academic and very athletic. In 1984, I started doing the Highland Games, and I ended up being one of the best in the world late into my 40s. In fact, my best year of my discus throwing was when I was 47. And then after that, some issues I had from birth. I had a condition called pistol grip hips. Instead of having hips that are round, mine were like this. And this is a condition that a lot of people in my family have, and it's brutal. You go bone on bone. My niece Danielle, when she was 18 months, it wasn't until about 2000 that I really started feeling it. By 2009, 10, So I've had on titanium double hip replacements, and then I knew I couldn't throw the discus or do Highland Games because of the twist, the hit, but I could Olympic lift. So I got back on the platform, and I lift in about 4 to 6 meets a year. Mostly the regional meets, because with my travel schedule, I'm not around. I've lifted in Europe now, and so that's kind of fun. And so I still compete, and I started coaching in 1979. It's a funny little story. Coach Mon called me in and said, Danny, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, damn it, what did I do? Honestly, and he asked me to come back in the fall and be in charge of the weight room. So in the fall of 1979, I might have been the first track and field strength coach in Division I, because I don't think there was any. And my job was what was happening in the mid 70s, Arnold, the educational bodybuilder, comes out, maybe 76, 77, Pumping Iron comes out, Conan comes out, and the weight room went from being lifting to bodybuilding, and coach was extremely concerned. And so I basically taught a generation of people to, front squat, back squat, snatch, clean, variations, and lift the way everybody else had lifted. But it all changed, and it changed so fast, Tony. It was remarkable to watch how fast everything changed. People started going for the burn. Guys were started doing, today's a chest day. Now, what kind of discus thrower would think chest? What kind of discus thrower would think lat day? Today's I worked on my lats. It's like, and of course the phrase looks like looks like Tarzan plays like Jane showed up for the first time. And I know it's sexist, and I apologize, but everyone seems to understand what we're talking about there, and about 2010, I decided to start my own business because and like we were talking off camera, I really struggled. My daughter, I love my daughter. She threw the hammer for the University of Utah, obviously not as academically strong as me, who went to Utah State, but, God bless her. She tried her best. She's not very tall. And this woman said, if you would get your daughter joining my club volleyball team, she could get a Division I scholarship. And I thought, no offense, but when I was at Utah State, they won the nationals twice when I was at Utah State. And when they came back from the trip, I remember congratulating them. Let me show you how you congratulate the Utah State volleyball girls when they come back from the nationals. Great job. Great job. Really fantastic work. I am very impressed. And my daughter, God bless her, is about this tall. And the Utah State girls, the short one, was this tall. And I know because I dated them. I just had to get out of it. I mean, the crazy lacrosse coaches with all the money they want to spend, the volleyball, crazy lacrosse parents, volleyball parents, the insane soccer parents. They're spending $10,000 a month so little sissy can play. And it's like, and then say, well, she might get a scholarship. Take that investment, put it in a coffee can, bury it in the backyard, and then in a couple of years, she'll have plenty of money for college. She'll have plenty of money to get her doctorate, her medical doctorate, and her philosophy doctorate, so she can sit down and explain, and economics maybe, so she can explain to you what a good decision that was versus trying to make it as a D1 athlete. The most important decision you make if you want a D1 athlete, and this is kind of an inappropriate joke, but it's funny, is in the backseat of the car.
Yep. Absolutely. Now, there's so many things that I want to ask you about just with what you've said so far. One of the things is you talk about how crazy it got with the Schwarzenegger bodybuilding revolution in the late 70s. And I would argue that we're still suffering from the same problem.
Well, Tony, if you don't, I'm going to leap in. Okay. In theology, we have a phrase called steno symbol. The word steno symbol is a phrase, a term, a concept that is so ingrained that you can't break it out. there's Christmas. Don we now are gay apparel. Gay means happy. Gay means happy. Gay means happy. Waken lords and ladies gay on the mountain dawns a day. Gay means happy. But if I was to tell you I'm gay, even if I said to you, I'm going to use the word gay to be happy, in 2021, the word gay has a different meaning. Even if I tell a group of parents, we're going to strength train, the parents all going to think double bicep. It's a steno symbol that is so ingrained, you cannot break out of it. If I was to say, for example, at a high school thing, if I was to say that Edna, our 14-foot high jumper, she's a great female high jumper, and she makes the pole dance. Thank you. Even though I'm trying to say something complimentary, I'll be in front of the principal and probably fired tomorrow, because you just can't use the phrases. And we're in a place right now where if my grandson Danny is in the weight room, he'll do a double bicep. If he just walks into my weight room and touches a weight, he'll do a double bicep right after it, because it's so ingrained that an 8-year-old will do it, 9-year-old, I guess now.
Yeah, and the problem that I have is that we have S&C coaches making upwards to $1 million a year in NCAA football that are bodybuilding and powerlifting.
Yeah, powerlifting. The powerlifting D1 coaches, oh my God. And they teach they teach their football players to have their head down when they squat and deadlift. You put your head down in a football game, we're not going to be calling, get me a stretcher. We'll be saying, get me an embalming fluid. It can kill you. But you know what? I can only do so. I can only do what I can do. And like the old phrase goes, and that's enough. Yeah.
That's enough. Now, you mentioned in the book, I forget the exact quote, but you have you're just a quote machine, obviously, but one sport is not a great way, playing one sport year round is not a great way to build athleticism.
Oh, absolutely.
Something like that.
Yeah, were you in the whole selection on the fluid thinking and things like that? Yeah. The problem with playing one sport is that, well, for one thing, there is an overuse. Okay, if we have physical therapists listening, you're right. It's the overuse, and it's true. If all you do is run up and down on the hard boards all the time, your feet and ankles and knees are going to hurt. All you do is whatever, all you do is pitch year round, the elbows and shoulders are going to go, and maybe even the feet too. But what you also don't do is you don't teach the brain anything new. So for years, I always told coaches, I'm going to go from this for two sides, Tony, okay? So when I was working with young coaches, I would ask them, I want you to play a few games of tic-tac-toe until the game tic-tac-toe takes you only so far, and then every game is a cat's game, okay? Right? And by the way, I just found out about a week ago, tic-tac-toe, if you reverse the word tack, it becomes cat, and that means an unwinnable game. I never knew that, and I thought that was cool. But then I would teach them chess, and I thought chess was a really good way to think as an American football coach. If you lose your queen on the 8th move of the game, it doesn't mean you're going to lose. In fact, it might. They work so hard attacking the queen, you might have a chance to actually checkmate, okay? But now there's a game I like a lot more. It's called Connect 4. And it's a fun little game, the little things you drop down. And as the colors hit in front of you, every time the color drops down, the game changes. It's kind of like playing against a veer offense. And what I'm trying to get the young coaches to realize is to get yourself out of the box of thinking, out of that box that we get into. And there's nothing worse than if you're a coach that believes in this, and the game changes. It can be something as simple as a rule change, but the game changed. So so as coaches, we can get into our own kind of metal pipe of thinking. But with the athletes, I think it's even bigger because it's also those other areas, the spiritual, the mental, the mind, body, soul, spirit. If all you do is, I can tell you this, if you're a golfer and you play hockey for a season, slap shotting while being elbowed by somebody is going to teach you a lot about hitting the ball harder. If you're a golfer and they turn you into a switch hitter in baseball, you're going to change some, there's going to be some linkage change that's good for you. You know, I can remember firmly, I thought I prepared for football better than anybody else I knew, because I think once you've wrestled, there is no conditioning that's harder than a normal wrestling practice. A Tuesday wrestling practice is harder than any conditioning an American football coach can throw at you. And then in the spring, I did the hurdles and discus, and I felt that the hurdles really taught me so much about speed and running. And by the time the season, and then of course summer was football and prep. By the time the season came around, coach would be like, "We're gonna really hammer you today," and be like, I didn't want to say anything to the coach, but really, you think running some 40s, it's nothing like, you know, having someone you in a, you know, in a, you know, in a Nelson with your face rolling in a mat for 35 seconds. It's much easier to run a 40-yard dash in your equipment. If you play basketball all the time, the lessons you can learn in a soccer game will, the triangles of soccer. And so, yeah, I'm a big believer that you learn those natural lessons, how to be, you know, how you get coached in wrestling. Okay, we're just going to come together and we're going to just sing a few verses of Kumbaya. And then, is that a wrestling coach? Does that sound like wrestling? No, man. You know, and if the coach is a nice guy, trust me, your best friend Irving is going to be rubbing your face in the mat just because it's funny to watch it happen. So you learn things about yourself, you learn things about sport, and the lessons you learn over here in soccer make you a far better football player. If you think you're fast, go out for track, because there's track fast and there's football fast. And you need to know what fast really means. So yeah, I would say, Tony, I feel strongly. Yes.
Yeah. And I think TFC, I mean, obviously it's just in our name, Track Football Consortium. We're trying to bring track coaches and football coaches together. It's really hard to play football 12 months a year. People are trying to get it done with 7-on-7 stuff. And, you know, year round.
What a joke. Sorry, coach is listening right now. 7-on-7's a joke. A joke. It is, oh my God. And the guy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Listen, we played it for a couple of weeks in the summer. None of that stuff counts. You make that little catch, do a little dance. Trust me, on the next play, I'm going to clothesline you. I'm going to elbow you in the face. I'm going to remind you, you do a dance in front of me, I'm going to hurt you physically. Oh God. And I know there's going to be the spread coaches go, well, we got to get our offense in. Yeah, well, okay. And if they change the rules, 1 or 2 rules, the spread's gone overnight. And of course, the spread, you know, really became famous here up at the U with that extremely famous, I won't go there. I was about to throw dirt on a coach, but I'll stop. I'm sorry. 7-on-7. My dog just lost his mind.
Even your dog's pissed off about 7-on-7. And you know, and not only do I think that playing multiple sports will help you in all sports, but I'm a big believer in, you know, in society today, there's all these private sports, you know, like travel sports, you know, there's 38, all these national championships in baseball for 8-year-olds, you know, like, oh, we're national champs. Really? Well, they went to an 8-team tournament with teams from 4 different states, and now they're national champs. So they have all that kind of crap, and these people, like you were saying, are paying $1,000 a month for all that stuff.
More than that.
And I'm just such a believer in education-based sports, that the most dynamic, most interesting people that any kid will ever meet is probably not their math teacher or their AAU coach. It is going to be their high school basketball coach, their high school wrestling coach, their high school track coach. And if you put a kid in only one of those sports, you are diminishing their educational opportunities. I mean, I would be so sad if a kid only took math classes in high school, but that's what parents are doing to kids athletically now.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing, how do you know what you're good at? So the cutoff where I grew up was September 1st, and I'm an August 28th birthday. So I was always the youngest kid in my class, always. And I was the youngest of 6 kids. And nowadays, parents would my parents wouldn't have, but they would have held me back 2 years. Well, I liked the fact that I was always chasing everybody else, because when puberty finally kicked in and weightlifting, I just shot past those guys, you know, on the field of play. But if you'd have sat me down at age 10 and said, you know, Danny, you're going to be a discus thrower and Highland Game athlete, an Olympic lifter, I wouldn't have known what you were talking about necessarily. But that's where I made my career. And if you stick to something, what if your kid is naturally just a crappy tennis player, but you push them into tennis? You know,
happens all the time. Happens all the time.
And it could be that they don't have whatever that DNA is to make the tennis ball go 125 miles an hour. In the same way, I mean, baseball's become a lot more honest in the last few years. I mean, we had a parent at the school I was at told our head baseball coach, you know, little Billy's throwing the ball 83 miles an hour, and the dad was bragging. Well, and he goes, well, at best, we can add 3 to 5 miles an hour in the next 4 years. There is no Major League Baseball team that is actively recruiting 85 mile an hour pitchers.
Right.
Well, I mean, maybe they threw a ton of junk, but it's just not. They are literally 10 to 15 miles an hour too slow. But the problem is that kid who throws 85 might be the nation's best javelin thrower. Or he might be a great outside linebacker, and maybe he's just born to play the piccolo in the school band.
And I'm sure too that you have seen kids that played 12 months a year, since, you know, of golf or whatever, since they were 5, and they're just not that interested in golf when they're 16. You know.
So one time we were giving away trophies, and I'll just pretend this is a trophy, but the kid, this is a goblet, but the kid said that you know, the trophies we got in the 3rd grade were bigger. And I thought that's a life lesson right there. You win. My daughter, Lindsay, I mentioned before, she threw away a trophy that she was given when she was young, because everybody in the league got a trophy that said MVP. Every single player in the league got the trophy saying MVP. Well, she's not an idiot. She knew that was just, I mean, it was a kumbaya, feel good about yourself thing. But my brother Gary talks about education. He goes, you know, they put the high jump bar at 1 foot, and everybody who jumps 1 foot gets a gold medal. The kids know it's crap. It's the adults who think it's really helping. And I just think, my brother Gary, Vietnam vet, disabled from the war.
Oh.
People think he's a jerk, but you know what? The guy's insightful, and when he says something like that, I stop and think about it and make sure he's right.
Yep. I wanted to. I think one of your themes is to embrace the obvious. And I think this is kind of a connection.
It's my coaching point number 1.
That's kind of a connection between me and you. In Southern Illinois, where I coached most of my career.
What university are you close to? Edwardsville, or what's the other one?
Well, it's interesting. I was, the closest university was Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, but my son coaches in Edwardsville. So
okay, I've been in discus workshops at both of those places. Yeah. And which one's closer to St. Louis?
Yeah, and you know, and where I was 20 miles from Kentucky, so there was a lot of like those Southern sayings.
Yeah,
and I accuse most coaches of planting beans and expecting to grow corn. That they do everything but the obvious. They are complexifiers. I mean, I'm a speed guy, and there are coaches that want to do 100 things other than sprint. And so I think Can you explain what you mean by embracing the obvious?
Runners run, throwers throw, swimmers swim, bikers bike. And until wrestlers wrestle, I can go on all day. Fencers fence. Don't get. And if the bulk of what you are doing, and this is the thing that separates me from most other throws coach, we do the full turn. Whatever you think, if you think you do a lot, I do it 100 times more than you, because my throwers are going to do more full turns than your throwers. It's obvious. And you sit down, you sit down with John Heisman in 1931 and you say, what's the secret to winning football games? And he says, block, tackle, and, hold on to the damn ball. And in 2021, if you want to be a good football coach, look at your blocking assignments, look at your missed tackles and your ball control, and all your answers, everything comes through from John Heisman's point from 1931. And I tell people about that quote from Heisman all the time, because it is true. It is what American football is. And I love this new thing with the speed trap sprinting, where you put 20 meters up and they come in and it's the athlete's job to get through there as fast as they can, the flying 20s or whatever, the 30s. I love it because it's a great, okay, you run a 1.9, you're really, really fast. What do you do? And then of course the follow-up is, how are you doing that so fast? And if the kid says, well, you know what I did?
Yep.
I'm going to write down whatever that kid said because he's right.
Yes.
That's the beauty of being a track and field coach. Embrace the obvious.
And like in my track and field experience back in the 70s, I was never timed in anything, even though I was a sprinter. I was never timed in anything other than like a rolling time of a 200 or 400 that we were running like 10 of, like 66, 67, 68. And I just came from my track practice just now. Yeah. I was almost late for the podcast, and we timed 10 different flies. No, I'm sorry, 100 flies altogether, where everybody ran 3 or 4 of them. And we are running through those cones, that speed trap, and we are trying to hit velocities we've never hit. And we convert it to miles per hour. And I just got my 7th guy today in the 22-mile-an-hour club. And like you said, when that guy hit 22 miles an hour, I said, what'd you do different?
Well, what did he do?
Well, he said he tried to extend his stride a little bit. And hey, it worked for you. And so there is a self-organization that happens, something that I never got to do because all we ever did was run. And we never embraced the obvious, because my coach always would say that God makes sprinters and coaches make milers. And so basically we, unless you were just genetically fast, you just ran your ass off.
But now we know. It's funny because in the world of throwing, if I get a kid who threw, 25 feet and a week later throws 35 feet, I'm sitting down with the kid. Okay, so what did you do different now? Because any improvement, it has to be. That's why I love in the weight room. Little Billy can't clean 200. Suddenly a week later, he cleans 205. Well, what happened? Well, I was talking to Johnny over there. Yeah. And he said that I should wait until the barbell passes my knees and then hit it. Yeah. And then you want to just say, literally, I've told you that 10,000 times. Hold that. Go, wow, Johnny's right. Johnny's got some, boy, because, and then you have to realize that even though I have been saying it, it hasn't been getting in.
That's right.
So what we need to maybe do is work more in cohorts or triads or teams or groups, or get the kids to engage each other more. And that's when I think I became a better coach. The bulk of my coaching, I do this. In fact, my daughter has a great imitation, not Kelly, the older one. She says, this is you coaching now. Because I don't, if I say something, it will probably destroy what the athlete is learning. So sometimes you just got to, no, obviously, I mean, well, I'll organize things. I'll put the right things in place. I will have certain cues that I use. Stay tall is my, in the weight room, stay tall and squeeze are my, and go.
That's my
go,
number
go.
one cue for sprinting. Stay tall. Number one cue.
Well, and squeeze, well, yeah, means wrestling maybe. But you have a few cues you yell out, but the rest of the time you're, and then when the athlete is finished resting, you walk over, then you make the correct, then you have this conversation, you make that brilliant coaching point, and then let's go back and let's do it again and see if things got better. And
I think you'll appreciate this. I'm 62 and my oldest son's 35, and he's a coach, and he taught me, and this is pretty cool when your kid can teach you something. He taught me, he's a great hurdle coach, and he says that he videos every rep because they don't do many reps because you have to be fresh and aggressive when you hurdle. So he videos every rep, and then he brings the kid over and doesn't say anything. He shows the video on his phone to the kid, and he lets the kid talk. And he says that the kid will be much more interested in what he says after he's critiqued himself, rather than if you critiqued the kid's video and then say, do you believe me? Or, like when you critique a kid will want to push back, but he takes that away by not talking.
If we have football coaches, so when I coached high school football, whenever the quarterback would wave me off, that's when I knew we're about to do something amazing on the field. I came from the generation just before me, quarterbacks called their own plays.
Yep. Just
before me. And then I played when coaches called every play, but I still thought there was great value. If the quarterback went like this, I got it. Then I would sit on the side, I just can't wait. And the other people say, that one kid you got who's records, what are we about to do? I don't know. I'm very excited to find out. And it always worked because, and then I'd find out later on that in the huddle, there was this high level conversation about what they were going to do. Okay. Wide receivers always say they're wide open. That's just part of the, but they would say, if we do this, then, okay, let's do this. And then they would go up, and I don't know. I'm the fog of memory is a problem, but I don't think we ever did badly when the quarterbacks called their own plays.
No.
In this situation, in this particular kind of thing, when they waved off the call. And I like this. But that is why I think, and if you don't mind me pushing track and field a little bit, it's if you have track and field athletes who take it seriously, and they go online nowadays, or they read a magazine, or they read a book, or they read, all that, it goes all the way up. All my magazines and books go all the way up and all the way everywhere else. When they break it open and say, hey, this guy did this, I'm going to try that. Even if I know that it's not going to work, I don't care, because that means that brain is linking up to something greater. And it ties us right back to our early discussion. If the kid is made to play tennis from day one to until they quit as a sophomore because they loathe it, they never actively engage. They never actively engage. And one thing I've noticed, Tony, is a lot of kids who've quit, they've been pushed into a sport. Very often when they quit, what they go into is very often a creative thing. I've just seen that. I've seen a lot of kids were like, they were the superstar third or, kid. They get into the band and fall in love with the trumpet. They get into this, or, I'm thinking of one boy, the kids who are the tech crew, he fell in love. And in fact, as I recall the story from years later, he became a professional tech crew guy for larger things.
Is it because that kid got to choose that?
And it just opened up that, creative part.
Yeah.
That's, it's weird because I love the way I teach the discus is stretch 1, 2, 3. But in that very structured method that I coach the discus, in it is all this flexibility and fun and these challenges and these contests. We put a bucket out, 20 feet less than the kid can throw, and the goal becomes who can drop the most discs in the bucket. Well, that's really hard to do, especially if you've got Paul Northway 214 thrower. But now it just became a little game. Who can hit the bucket is one point, drop it and all of a sudden the brain just changes. And a few weeks later, they all throw personal records. Yeah.
Now, one of the things, and I have tweeted a lot about you, but because you're not on Twitter, you've never seen them. But anyway, one of the things that I'll never forget is, and I'll say both things. I believe this was your coach, Ralph Mullen. He said little and often over the long haul. And he also said that the secret to the discus is to lift 3 days a week, throw 4 days a week for 8 years.
The 8 years thing is the part people miss. That's the one they lean in on. I'm sorry, what was that last part?
Wasn't it Al Order that said he threw the discus 100 times a day for 20 years?
Well, see, it's hard to get the truth about what Al did. It really is. One of the things, though, was when he figured out that he could only, because of his work at Grunman, he could only train 3 days a week. So he lifted and threw 3 days a week. And he only threw with one discus. But what he was doing, how do you know an old thrower is lying?
Well, I'm pretty good friends with Tom Petronoff. And
are you now?
I am, yes. And
I was at his third track meet, and if he remembers, that's when another guy in the meet, sidearm thrower, threw it into the stands and hit a girl.
Oh my God!
And I wonder ask Tom if he remembers that.
I just know that Tom has stories that I really question if they could really all be true.
Well, Tom was put on this, because remember he was a baseball player.
Yep, at Naperville, Illinois. 5 miles.
Don't forget his third track meet, he threw like 265, so he might be better than the rest of us.
He had not thrown the discus in his life and was walking. Yeah. He was walking, a junior college baseball player, walking across a field, and some javelin guy said, "Get to hell, you're going, whatever." And so Tom walked over like, "I'm gonna fight you," or something like that, and he picked up one of the javelins and threw it like over 200 feet.
Right.
And the first time he'd ever thrown, and like threw further than the guy on the track team there.
Right.
And so before you know it, he's world champion or world record holder. But yeah, Tom was a storyteller.
Yeah. So what you'll find with Order is the genius of Order is he never just took a throw. Now he did two things. One, he had the towel drill where he kept moving the towel and he kept trying to throw it farther than the towel ever. So he threw it and then try to throw it farther and then throw it. But the other thing he did brilliantly was he would say to himself, okay, it's the last round of the national. No, I need to add, he would turn, he would get a worse wind, and he would try to win. He kept doing these little mind games with himself, practicing scenarios. My favorite thing he ever said was, yeah, you're at the Olympics, and it starts to rain. What are you going to do? What, fall down? No, I planned what I was going to do. And don't forget, his lifetime best, the 68 Olympics, was his lifetime best throw with a left-hander's win in the rain. Of course, that's just off the rails of amazing, but still, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I love your stuff about you're an anti-rotation guy. I hear a lot of people talk that rotation is the holy grail. Can you explain being anti-rotation?
Yeah. Anti-rotation is what makes stuff go far, not rotation. And I'm good friends with Stu McGill. He's the great spine specialist up in Canada. And Stu applauds everything I say about this. So the best spine specialist in the world agrees with me. Some jackass on Instagram disagrees with me. I'm going to go with Stu. Okay. I have tried a thousand exaggeration. I have, if you read my journals, I've got discus twists. I've got all these things. None of it works. The bulk of them hurt your spine. But anti-rotation, that would be like something like a suitcase carry. That's where you have a heavy load in one hand and you go for a walk with it like you're carrying a suitcase. According to Stu, he went up, he heard my workshop, and he goes, by God, it's true. It is probably better for you. And what happens is, as I come around the discus, yes, I am rotating. The Danish national record holder, and I had a wonderful conversation about this one time. Yes, you should think more rotation in the discus in training, not in a meet. But what hurls it is stopping, and then it's you're driving down the freeway 100 miles an hour and you hit a low brick wall. Your head becomes the implement, and that's kind of what you want to do as a thrower. So yeah, I don't believe, there's a lot of things I can't stand, and you can disagree with me. I don't care. I'm not going to add them. I hate burpees with a passion because people overdo them. I hate lunges with a passion because people overdo them. I hate rotation work because people overdo them. If you have all your athletes and all your athletes can military press body weight, do 10 pull-ups, front squat, 150% body weight, deadlift, double body weight, and do farmer walks with double body weight for 100 meters. You don't need all the other crap. You just don't. But there's this whole lunge. No one ever talked about lunges. This is part of that bodybuilding thing. That's, if you're lunging, it's good because, Jane Fonda, she's the one that brought lunging, into the forefront. So good for you. You're on the cutting edge of Jane Fonda's go for the burn. Why don't you do fire hydrants while you're doing them too? I loathe lunges. Burpees, poor Royal Burpee, the inventor of the burpee, he recommended doing 4, and they're simply an assessment by us as coaches to see how you move. And that's it. I hate rotation work because people overdo it, and it doesn't really carry over to the throw. I've never seen a rotation exercise carry over. Here's the funny thing though. If you snatch body weight, suddenly you throw farther. Magically,
I didn't know till today that you were the inventor of the goblet squat.
You're welcome. In fact, there you go. There's your goblet.
Very impressive.
And the suitcase carry too, by the way. And if you know what a slosh pipe is, you're welcome.
I've got to get to you as a writer because I'm in the middle of writing my first book right now. I've written.
Send me an early draft. I'll help you out.
Oh, I would love that. I've written enough articles in the last 7 years. I started like maybe 8 years ago to fill 7 books. But I always liked the process of writing an article, pouring everything into it for 2 days, and then putting it out there and walking away. And I didn't think I ever wanted to write a book. And a good friend that's written a great book called The Twin Thieves, a guy named Steve Jones, he talked me into it. So I'm in the middle of it. So first of all, are you? I think I know the answer to this. You are an avid reader.
Hey, I read a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, don't you think that being a writer, that's the number one thing that makes you a better writer?
Well, my daughters have Hemingway blood in them. And I would just say 2 things. If you're going to be a writer, there's 2 things you need to do. 1, you have to be a walker. And number 2, you have to be a reader. Wow. It's fascinating to read. If you type in writers and walking, I would be surprised if you didn't get 1,000 quotes. And walking is probably the secret of good writing.
I'm a runner. So
Well, you know, not everyone's gifted. So, you know, you got to do what you got to do.
But I often say that my best ideas, I run slow. So it's kind of like a walk. So my best ideas happen when there is semi-fatigue.
Yes.
And my brain wants to wander.
In fact, I mean, you got to start bringing something to write with. Now, one thing I've noticed is that I have a phone over there and I've got a thing I can do notes.
Sure. Me too.
Talk to it. And that's good. But can I just, okay, so let me, but the reason I like, and this is completely unplanned. I didn't, but can you see that?
Yes.
And then, so that's what happens when you use notes. And by the way, that is going to end up being probably a 10-page article for my website. So, and then you see that? So the thing about writing, and then I always keep these with me, these little memo books.
Yep.
And then this is just these are just me. So for me, I still think writing things down because, and oh, by the way, if you can, make little drawings, as we say on Saturday Night Live, little tiny drawings of what you're trying to say. Just, it can be, I like, if you're reading my work, I like quadrants a lot. I like to put things in, I don't like either or. I like quadrant thinking, you know, where they got two things, you know, and I noticed the way my brain works sometimes. It seems to help me if I can just get that tension of, we saw it in the book with the way people think, the way the brain works, the different kinds of intelligence they are, you know, and I call it warrior and king thinking in that book too. But that little tension where this style of thinking rubs against this kind, and it helps me write from there, the conversation that I get from. So if you can't, and then when you decide to read, you know, I probably have, and I'm not exaggerating, probably I'm not exaggerating if I said 50 to 100 books on weightlifting, more than that, certainly. Magazines would be in the 500, track and field books, probably a couple dozen. But I also love The Sword and the Stone, Count of Monte Cristo. I like murder mysteries. I love the Cat Who murder mysteries. I love the burglar who stole Ted Williams and all those. I like murder mysteries, although technically they're not mysteries because they're solved. They should be called murder problems. But you just got theologians right there. So yes, I think I'd love to read, but I think it's real important as a reader you expand outward. So for you with your book, and here's the funny thing: you never know in the middle of what you're going to pick up on. Years and years ago, I was reading a thing, and it helped my students at the time. If you ever want to write a haiku, you put the words to Moonlight in Vermont in your head. Moonlight in Vermont is the most famous song without any end rhyme at all. There's no rhyme in it because Moonlight in Vermont is written as a haiku. So if the students know Moonlight in Vermont, they can write pennies in a stream, you know, it's haiku. So in the middle of this murder mystery, all of a sudden I become a haiku expert for my students who are at the time were studying this thing. And they thought it was funny. And they told the English teacher that, and the English teacher's like, what's the strength coach know? It's like, well, okay, you're right. What do I know? Except I help them write their haikus.
There you go. So put you on the spot. If you had 3 books that had nothing to do with sports that you would strongly recommend, give me 3 book recommendations.
The Sword in the Stone. And it's illustrated. This one is by Dennis Nolan. And over there on my wall, I have a Dennis Nolan original from the book. So I would start with The Sword in the Stone. It was a foundational book in my life. it's tough because you're nailing me down for 3, and I'm mentally throwing books out. Well, yeah, there's 2 ways I can go on this, and I'll either The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, or the 7 Harry Potters, because you get that classic Western civilization story of the orphan. The orphan always has to go underground. They pick up certain boons and gifts from their friends. Friendship is always so important. I just explained 99% of Western Civ right there.
There you go.
So, and by the way, Sword in the Stone, pretty similar to that too. Shoot. Well, and then one of 2 books, either the Brothers Karamazov, which I found to be just a stunning read, and the deeper and deeper you get into it, the more and more and rich it gets, or the Count of Monte Cristo. I really thought highly of it. Now I'm gonna step back and I'm gonna give you 2 more. This is a bonus round for you.
I love it.
Shockingly, how good Godfather is. The book, The Godfather. Now, I understand he wrote it just to make money, but it doesn't change the fact that it is one of the most knit books I've ever read in my life. A knit. And then, even though the movie just came out, and I thought it was okay, but I'm a big Herbert's Dune. And by the way, just The Godfather, the other books are not very good. Just Dune, the other books are horrible. I mean, just terrible. But that would keep you happy on a lot of. I have a little pocket edition of The Hobbit that sometimes it fits in a coat pocket, and I'll travel with that sometimes and just reread it. And whenever I reread it, I'm always like, what a wonderful story this is. And that's sometimes, when you finish a book, if the Fellowship of the Ring, the Return of the King, the guy Sam comes home and says, I'm home. And that's the last line of the book. When a book finishes, where you just say, I'm home. It's that, to me, is what the kind of book's like. So.
Now, if somebody was only going to read one of your books,
yes,
which one?
Because it's such an ode to my mentors, 40 years with the whistle. I wrote it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It's my 40 years as a coach. And, but I talk about what I got from in fact, it's interesting. Originally, I wasn't going to include my high school coach, Coach DeYoung. But then when I went to his funeral, there was a cardboard thing like this with his hot sheet from a football game. Pretty sure it was the game I played in. And not only could I tell you on this, it was a piece of paper this big, filled. Not only could I tell you what I had to do on every play, I could have told you what all 11 guys would have done, because his system was so simple. And when you have a simple system that sticks around literally 45 years after the athlete plays, can still remember everything, that's good coaching. So,
and
yeah.
Because it's simple, and this is something I'm huge on, is just the whole idea of unconscious competence, that
Yes.
that coaches love instinctual players, but then we fill their heads with clutter.
Right.
And so that's why simplicity is so important. And when a guy like Mike Leach, and I disagree with a lot of Mike Leach stuff, but when he says things like, if it takes more than 5 words to call a play, you don't run that play. And his whole offense is on a napkin.
Yep.
I mean, that allows people to play instinctually and to not. And I think you mentioned this too. I can't remember where it was in my notes, but you said you can't think during a ballistic movement.
Brian Oldfield.
With cues. Oh, that Oldfield said that. And what I say is that the fastest runners run with their lizard brain. Yeah. They detach their prefrontal cortex, their PFC. And that's really should be the goal of all coaches in all sports, because that thinking, that judgmental brain, does not allow for high performance.
When I pick up my right foot in the discus, I deliver it in 1.6 seconds. How much thinking can I do in a good way in 1.6 seconds? None.
Mhm.
I can sure muddy up a lot of things. And that's one of the things I used to really, I used to always tell the athletes, and I don't even know if it's true. I've heard it, but I don't know if it's true. It takes 3 strides to speed up. So one of the things, the reasons I always would teach that is I say, if someone's passing to me, okay, you got to say to yourself, okay, but it's going to take me 3 strides to react. And the reason I always did that was a little comfort, a little pillow of, it's okay if someone flashes past you. I'll be there in 3 strides. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. But sometimes when you're coaching, you have to give the athlete tools for when they panic. And because athletes do panic, and the moment you panic, all of a sudden you start thinking about mom and dad are in the stands. Oh, and I got that assignment in math tonight. And and then did I blow that candle out 3 months ago? That's what's happening to track meet when someone's flailing, is they are thinking, so what were you thinking about? Well, usually I have oatmeal meals for breakfast, but today I had a bagel. And what? Because that's where the brain goes. It goes into the most worthless place it can be. I like lizard brain. I like that. That's a good way to think of snake brain. Yeah.
Yeah. And you also mentioned something that my good friend Steve Jones, the guy I talked about earlier, that wrote the great book, The Twin Thieves. The guy is 128-8 as a high school football coach. So he's pretty spectacular.
Twin Thieves.
The Twin Thieves.
And
I think it's a book about leadership.
Okay.
And it's wonderful. And but anyway, he talks about getting everybody on the same page with vocabulary.
Oh, yes.
He doesn't want his freshman coaches using terms that are going to be unique to the freshman football team.
Right.
And you address that as well.
Oh, to death. To death. In fact, Nick Saban said something a year ago when he brings in a new coordinator. He says 99 people on this team call this. We get a new guy, he decides to call this that. No, it's this. This is what we call it here at Alabama. Because what happens is, in the middle of the most important moment of the season, someone's going to say anchor instead of stone, and there'll be a moment like stone. And I got to tell you, now you got an athlete thinking, and thinking is, yeah, I agree. Oh, that's why I like having workouts. I even have workouts. Like when you sit down with my athletes, and if I say to my athletes, okay, end of March, the Big 21, they'll all go, oh, okay. Today's the Eagle. Today's the Sparhawk. I like to name certain certain parts of workouts. This is how when I coach the Olympic lifts, it's slide, up, jump. And those are the words you're allowed to use. Well, dip and stomp for the jerk. But those are the terms you're allowed to use in coaching. Now, you can correct it by saying, as you slide, you're not, and then you would do a coaching moment there. You do whatever. But yeah, 1,000%. But like I said, when at my high school, right 123 dive told 11 people what to do. And I can tell you what to do where everyone goes. And if you want to vary that look, you go left 2 and everything looks completely different. Completely. Now you have to run a 47 on that one, but that's okay. Here's the funny thing. I'm saying these things out loud, and these tiny little words have a lot of meaning. So the Sparhawk is 8 goblet squats, suitcase carry, 7 goblet squats, suitcase carry, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, with suitcase carries in between each one. But I say Sparhawk, and everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Love it. Gosh, 2 more things I want to hit on. One is, it's so interesting when you use the word snapacity.
Snapacity, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I was training some kids down in Arizona, like in May, and there was this 10-year-old girl that could do the drills that we do so well. Mm-hmm. And I said the word, she's just really snappy. and which snappy to a sprint coach means elastic,
It's same in my world.
Oh, good. And so, and I always say that a stretched rubber band doesn't shoot very far. We want to be tight rubber bands.
Yeah.
We want to really
Same.
address the tendons. That big muscles seldom make us fast, but really good tendons do.
Yeah.
But you combined it with capacity. And as a sprint coach, it's interesting. I don't know if you'd agree with this or not, but we work on snappy only during the entire, snappy and strength and mobility, but snappy is the key thing we work on all through the winter. And then we improve capacity in season. That we have found that it takes less time to produce capacity than it does snappiness.
Isn't that interesting?
I don't know if you'd agree or disagree with that, but
it doesn't matter. All you did was open my eyes to understand that the rules might change for a sprint coach versus a throws coach or a football coach. But here the thing is, the joke is this in my field. There's strength and conditioning, but most of the time all you hear is conditioning and conditioning.
Yes.
And I could care less what kind of shape you're in.
Yes.
If you pass out after throwing the discus 246 feet, you're still the new world record holder. I don't care how tired you are. And that's a hard lesson for a lot of young coaches. Well, a lot of coaches, because there's always this idea that you have to somehow magically earn or what, and it's just not. Sometimes, man, you just gotta. On 4th down and 1, if I make the biggest hit of the year and throw the running back, and I've been dogging it in wind sprints all year long, who cares? I did the task at hand. This idea, and it always comes, every generation thinks the one after it is, a bunch of, just not up to snuff. But sometimes you condition your people out of performance.
Amen.
And
that's actually the name of my book. It's called Tired is the Enemy.
Oh, okay. You're gonna ping me where you are, and I'll help any way I can.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, I really, and I read. It was my. It's funny. Sadly this last week my publisher is Laree Draper. Her husband Dave Draper, the famous bodybuilder, died last week. And Dave was a good friend of mine, good man. And I don't even know what the story was going to be. Shoot, I got down that road. Okay, whatever I'm talking about, obviously. And then I started talking about my heart broke a little bit and I forgot.
Yeah.
But Laree she told me one time, I might have more forewords written in the history of books because I love to read people's books and then encourage them to keep going forward. It means a lot to me. I wrote 2 of Dave's. In fact, I wrote the forward to Dave's last 2 books, and the forward to that last book is the best thing that I've ever written by far. But the thing about those of us in this industry in coaching is we got to become each other's cheerleaders because nobody else cares.
Amen.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to end it with one of the best things I've ever read. 6 decades of lessons in 50 words.
Oh,
we let me read it. Sure. Do you know it by heart?
Make a difference. Yeah, I kind of. Well, I know every single line, but I don't know it by heart. But go ahead.
Okay. You say that somebody asked me to summarize the lessons I've learned in my life, and I was told keep it short. I hope 50 words is not too imposing. So here it goes. Make a difference. Live, love, laugh. Balance work, rest, play, and pray. Enjoy beauty and solitude. Sleep soundly. Drink water. Eat veggies and protein. Walk. Wear your seatbelt. Don't smoke. Floss your teeth. Put weights overhead. Pick weights off the floor. Carry weights. reread great books, say thank you, and gentle reader, thank you.
Yeah.
Those might be the best 50 words you've ever written.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. I mean, I just think that should be a poster or something.
It is. There's gyms all, I don't, on something like that, I wouldn't sell it because it would, but there are, in Ireland and England, there are many gyms that have that up on the wall. In one gym, you know those tiles you get in, was it Scrabble?
Yes.
The person took the Scrabble, you know, the little squares, and wrote the whole thing up on a wall. And it's gorgeous. It is just absolutely gorgeous. And those are the kind of things, you know, I'm a little older than you, but those are the kinds of things that, you know, both my parents died young, a long time ago. And that's my grandson making noise upstairs right now. And he's 6 to 8 months now. I can't. And I know I'm against the DNA of my family. I know I have more yesterdays than tomorrows. So when someone does something like that with Scrabble tiles, with something you said, all of a sudden you suddenly realize that those first 3 words make a difference. Maybe I did. And that's, you know, and maybe, and for all the coaches listening, don't just remember the bad situations. You change people's lives every day as a coach. And I've been, you know, I go to these tailgates for the University of Utah because that's where I live. And I bump into former students, and my former students now are in their late 50s. And they'll talk to me about this thing I did in 1981 that I don't have any memory of. The one young lady said, she's 58. She said that one day she showed up to class, and I looked at her, I said, "Are you okay?" And she didn't say anything. I go, "Why don't you go somewhere else for a little while? And then if you want to come back, we can talk." And she said that was one of the most important moments of her life, where I could see that she was distressed, and I cared for her at a human level. She didn't remember my talk on Beowulf. She didn't remember my insights on haikus and Moonlight in Vermont. She didn't remember what the 4th and down play was called, but she remembered that. And that's what Make a Difference is all about. And that's why it's my mission statement. Yeah.
Yep. And I will end it with, my dad is in memory care at the age of 87, and he can't read time or calendar. He still knows people, but his memories of sports and his old coach, perfect.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well,
thank you.
So anyway, let's end it right there. There are no questions in chat, but this has been fantastic.
Thank you, Tony. Anytime you want. I will say one thing, Tony. No matter where I lecture, whether it's the military or universities, very rarely do people have questions immediately after.
Okay.
But they do. So if anyone has specific questions for me, dan@danjohn.net, and I'll answer them for any of your audience, okay? And if you want, if it has to be a follow-up phone call, my cell phone over there is 801-288-9180. And I'm happy to talk to any coach anytime. Because, thank you, Matthew. Because I know what it's like to be a coach. Sometimes you feel like John Dunn, you know, no man is an island unless you're the head football coach at the end of on the wrong end of the score.
There you go. There you go.
Everybody wants to buy you drinks after the championship, and no one wants to be close to you on the bad days.
No, and the guy that wants to buy you a drink is usually the first guy that's going to stab you.
Oh yeah,
when it goes bad.
Best piece of advice I ever got when I became an administrator: the first 5 people who show up to your door are the ones who are going to try to kill you. Here's a funny thing: it was true.
Dan, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Oh, back
I
at you.
can't tell you how nervous I was getting on here. Oh yeah, because I'm like a skinny sprint guy, and you're like this big, like guy that used to like want to beat me up or something. And
my best friends in the nice thing about being a track and field athlete is that there's nothing better than being on a team bus in track and field, especially at the university level.
Oh, the diversity of humans.
It is and my best friend at Utah State, Tarald Lidmansmung, was a distance runner from Norway. And I don't think we shared none of our nutrition. I ate everything. He ate nothing. Training, he went for long runs. I wouldn't run to save my life, but we were just good friends because that's what track and field is. And a gentle listener, if I could passionately plea, the world can be a better place if more of us get involved in track and field, because the tape measure and the timer are truths.
Yep. Perfect ending.
Thank you, Tony. And you're going to stay in touch, okay?
Oh, I will for sure. And you will get a manuscript, and just be nice.
Be nice. Hey, I've been there. I would never not be nice to you. Thank you. It's been an honor. Okay, my friend.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.